Metal casting. It is a primary manufacturing process. So, with casting, we cannot produce the desired objects with a good surface finish or high dimensional accuracy. So, some other manufacturing operations are required for the casted products in order to produce the finished products. Generally, this process uses liquid metal to produce desired parts. Okay. So, casting is one of the earliest metal shaping methods which is known by human beings. Generally, it involves the pouring of molten metal into refractory mold. Okay, so this refractory mold, it which has a cavity with the desired shape, and then this liquid metal will be allowed to solidify. Once it is solidified, then the object will be taken out from the mold. So this casting process, it has various advantages. Let us see why casting process it is being used widely, even though it cannot produce the parts with high dimensional accuracy and good surface finish. The advantages, if you see, since the liquid metal can flow into small sections, objects with intricate shapes can be produced with a casting process. This is the first advantage. Because of this nature of getting complex geometrical objects can also be produced with casting operation, it is being used widely. This casting can be done for both ferrous as well as non-ferrous metals. Then the infrastructure of casting, that is the tools that are used in casting molds, they are very cheaper and simple. Then the casted products, they don't have any directional properties, because once the liquid metal is allowed for solidify, okay, so all the parts of this casted product, they cool uniformly in all directions. Casting can be performed for the parts with a larger size and weight, right? So these are the advantages of the casting process, and because of these advantages, the casting process is widely being used in the manufacturing industries. Apart from the advantages of casting, which has several limitations, let us see what are the drawbacks or the limitations of a casting process. So, the casted products with high dimensional accuracy may not be achieved in sand casting process. Of course, we may go for alternate casting products, casting process, in order to achieve good dimensional accuracy, that will be discussed later. Okay, but if we consider this sand casting process, the dimensional accuracy is somewhat comparatively less as compared to the desired object. So the casted products will not have the good surface finish in sand casting process. This is also one of the drawback with the casting operation. It is often difficult to minimize the defects arise due to most moisture present in the sand castings. Since it is liquid metals, okay, so some content which has moisture, okay, so due to this moisture present, the casted products will have certain difficulties, defects, okay, so it is very difficult to minimize such defects that are due to this moisture content in the sand castings. This casting process widely used in various applications. If you see those applications, many of the automobile parts and machine components that are made up of casting process. So if you see these typical casting products are cylinder blocks, liners, machine tool beads, and piston rings, wheels, belts. These are the various automobile parts that are being manufactured with a casting process. Now let us have a look on how the casting process it is actually being placed, and what are the various terms or the nomenclature of a sand casting process. So this sand casting process is a basic manufacturing process of the casting process. Before going into the details, let us discuss the terms that are used in sand casting process. In the casting, the first name is flask. Flask is nothing but it is a molding flask which holds the sand mold intact. Depending upon the position of the flask in the mold structure, it may be referred as drag, okay, which is the lower part of the mold. So if you see this gray colored part which is occupied area with the gray color, that is the lower part of the mold, it is called the drag, okay. And cope, the upper part which the color is in purple color, okay. So this color upper part of the mold, it is called the cope, okay. So here I am just mentioning this is cope, okay. So the complete setup of this cope and drag is called flask. Sometimes we may use cheek, that is the intermediate part of drag and cope, but for the simplicity or simple sand casting process, it involves only cope and drag as the mold or the flask. The next term is parting line. Parting line is nothing but what? This is the dividing line between the molding flasks, okay. So we have drag, okay, and cope, okay. So the dividing line, so for suppose if you see here, this is okay, this is the dividing line of cope and drag, okay. So this line, it is called parting line, okay. So this is parting line, okay. So the pattern is first kept on the bottom board, okay, and sand is sprinkled on it, and then the ramming is done on the drag, okay. So of course it is according to the in split pattern, if you see, it is also the dividing line between the two halves of the pattern. And the next term is core. Core, this is a tool which is used for making hollow cavities in castings. For suppose if you see this object, okay, so which uses some core, this part, it is the core, okay. So the next term is pouring basin, okay. Pouring basin is nothing but what? It is fixed at the top of the mold, okay. So here this one is the pouring basin, okay. So it is fixed at the top of the mold from which molten metal is poured, okay. So in this that liquid metal will be kept, and the liquid metal will be then poured through this pouring basin. If you see this one, okay, so this is a pouring basin. Then the next term is sprue. Sprue is nothing but what? It is the passage through which the molten metal pouring from the pouring basin to the mold cavity. So here this is the mold cavity, okay, the mold cavity is with the desired shape, okay. So this we know, this is the pouring basin, okay, so in which molten metal is kept. So this molten metal will be passed through this sprue, okay, this is nothing but sprue, okay, then it will reach to the mold cavity. Then the next term is runner. Runner is nothing but what? See, okay, you can observe the passage of the molten metal through the sprue, okay. So this passage, okay, is nothing but the runner. It is used to regulate the molten metal flow before it reaches to the mold cavity, okay. So this is runner. Then the next term is gate. Gate is nothing but it is the actual entry point, okay, through which molten metal enters the mold cavity. It may be somehow we can represent, for suppose it is the mold, okay, so this is the entry point, okay, and through that entry point the molten metal will be flown to the mold cavity. Then riser. Riser is nothing but what? It is acts as the reservoir of molten metal. For suppose if the molten metal is flown through this sprue and it reaches to the gate and then it is entering into the mold cavity, okay. So if extra molten metal is required, then some of the molten metal will be kept at this riser. This is called riser, okay. In this riser we keep, okay, and then whenever hot metal is required to flow back into the mold cavity, when there is a reduction in volume of metal due to solidification, this riser provides that extra material. So this is the purpose of fixing riser in the mold cavity or casting. And this is the part, it is called ladle, through which the liquid metal will be poured into the pouring basin, okay. And then if you observe here brown color circles, these are nothing but the vent holes, okay, vents, okay. So this liquid metal, hot liquid metals, whenever it is flown through this passage or runner, okay, some sort of hot gases will be coming, okay. So these hot gases will be removed through these vents from the mold, okay. So these are the various terms that are being used in the sand casting process.